Anyways, preamble aside, welcome to this season of Dime Gaming Bros. Shall we kick it off with our Christmassy December holiday episode? Not spooky. What are you looking at me for?
I'm trying to figure out where you're going with this.
I'm just introducing the idea of snow.
Oh.
I'm a storyteller. So this episode will be getting released in December. We're actually recording it in December, even though we were supposed to record it in November. We're dumb, mostly me. So we kind of have a theme going on. Starting off with my review. This one might be a little short. I'm working. I'm trying, man. But this is a very short game. So I played Never Alone. It is a puzzle platform adventure game developed by Upper One Games and published by E-Line Media, based on the traditional Inupiaq tale, which I will, again, not try to pronounce. There are some of these I'm just not going to be able to do.
Okay.
Which was first recorded by master storyteller Robert Nasrek Cleveland in his collection Stories of the Black River People. The story is swapping between an Inupiaq girl named Nuna and her Arctic fox companion. The player completes puzzles in a story that spans 8 chapters. The game was the result of a partnership between the Cook Inlet Tribal Council and E-Line Media. It is one of the growing number of video games produced by Indigenous people, and there is a sequel coming. I know I just read off the Wikipedia page, but there is a sequel coming, which I didn't even know until I just pulled up this Wikipedia page. Apparently, earlier this year, Lord of Our Savior 2022, a sequel was announced, so that's neat. So, you see, snow. That's the primary reason I played this game, because December is supposed to have snow, here anyways, and we have none. So fucking kill me. This theme doesn't work at all this month. But, so I've had this sitting on my Games from Gold download list for quite a while. I think they gave this out like 6 months ago or so. I like puzzle platformer games. This is a known thing. I've reviewed like 3 or 4 of them on this show before. And I wanted something that was themed, and it was honestly one of the only games I could find or think of that had snow or like winter weather as a relevant bit, other than the game that Jacob did. So I wanted to keep it on theme, and it was also just useful for my time constraints because it's a short game. So, as I already said, the game takes place over 8 chapters. They are not, they're chapters in the sense of that's when like the achievements pop, but like they're not really segregated that strongly. Basically, the whole thing is framed under a story. Like I said, it's a narrated version of an oral traditional tale, which is like the framing device. So, of course, it's all in the Inupiaq language, which I do not know, obviously. And then it's all subtitled in English, or other languages, I would guess. So it's framed like that, and then it dips into cutscenes, which are rendered in-engine, and then gameplay, and then like the separations between stuff is kind of vague. It's about a 4-hour long experience if you play through thoroughly, like I always do, and I can't help myself, in like one sitting. So it makes for, they're basically just, when do we load the next chunk of the game? They're not really chapters like a revisitable story or like level replay or anything like that. So yeah, each one of those chapters, in quotations, starts off with a visual like storybook. So say like you would see cave drawings done with like charcoal and pigments and stuff. It's like that, but on a paper book, which is animated. It goes over the story while there's a narrator talking, and then it transitions over to the character that you're following, Nuna. She's like 7, probably. You follow her while the narrator keeps talking. He just kind of randomly interjects with new information or new parts of the story. It'll have a 2-minute cutscene, and then it slides over to gameplay, and then you play for 10, 20 minutes, and then it just kind of repeats that cycle infinitum until you're done. So, this is a game, but mostly in the technical sense. This is not a Telltale-style point-and-click adventure game where it's like half gameplay, half video footage with prompts. This is about half cutscenes, and then half of it is very basic puzzle platforming. And by very basic, I mean like a 10-year-old could probably play this. Gameplay-wise, it's very straightforward. When you're actually doing gameplay, it's just your typical, left to right 2D platform puzzle game. You switch back and forth between the two characters, Nuna and her Arctic Fox, which have slightly different abilities. So Nuna, as the story progresses, one, she can jump like high because she's a kid, and then she gets bolas, like the swinging, throwable hunting device, I think would be the biggest usage for those. So she can like knock off icicles and like break down walls and stuff with those. And then if you play as the Arctic Fox, you can, one, see spirits, which is arguably the coolest thing about this game, if I'm being honest. Something I did not expect it to be as heavy of a presence is like spirits. So the fox can make them visible to you and to Nuna, so then you can like jump on them. They're kind of wispy, smoke-like, vaguely creature-looking, spirits. They look like a cave wall interpretation of what a fox or a fish looks like, something like that. They some of them are just stationary. Some of them are used as like platforms that move left to right, up and down, etc. So the Arctic Fox has to be within a certain radius from them for them to be visible and usable. And then the fox can also obviously slide into smaller spaces because it's like half the height of the child. The fox can run up walls and do some hardcore parkour. Run up, like skitter up a wall, jump off of it, skitter up that wall, jump off of it, skitter up the wall. Just basic puzzle mechanic. In that sense, I do think that they play very well together. This is a game you can play in co-op. I'm assuming it's like single screen multiplayer, which is a type of multiplayer that I do like. A split screen is useful for some types of games, but if you don't need it, it's nice to not have it. So right when you start the game, when you meet the fox, you just have the option to just turn on a second controller and hop right in. I think there's online co-op, no clue. But I just played it on my own, and then you can just toggle between the two characters by pressing a button. That's it. They run at different speeds, which can make traversal kind of annoying. It's an interesting dynamic in terms of gameplay. The puzzles start off incredibly basic, kind of like cringefully bland. By the end of the game, they are a little bit more complex. They could take more than a try or two to get through just because, like, for thinking reasons. But the biggest issue is this game is janky as fuck. I'm sorry. It's not broken by any means. It runs the way that it runs. It's not like that's an issue, but the animations are sloppy, might be a way to put it. Like where the hitboxes are or where the animation rigs are is not consistent. So say you are going from left to right and you want to quickly turn around to start going right to left. Instead of just pulling the trigger, pulling the stick, and you immediately start moving, like there's a tiny little like turnaround animation. And that happens all the time. So it's incredibly frustrating when the entire environment is ice, water, and snow. So you are falling off of stuff fucking constantly, falling into water, having to start over again because it's just not precise. Something that puzzle platformers really need to have going for them is precision and like smooth gameplay. And this doesn't have either. It's not bad. It's just very basic and not polished.
That's one of the biggest differences that I remember from League of Legends and Dota, is that one has your main character turn on a dime and one of them has like a second to actually turn around when moving in a different direction. And that's just like a big deal in the gaming world, I guess. Yeah,
it carries over momentum in a very bizarre fashion. It makes sense.
A piece of trivia for you. I'm about to now.
It vaguely makes sense why when you're looking at it, it doesn't seem weird. It fits more with the thematic presentation of the game, but it does make the gameplay very frustrating. So say something, a similar-ish type of puzzle platform would be like Ori and the Blind Forest, like that series. Those games are also extremely thematic. There's a lot of cutscenes. The cutscenes are rendered in engine. It's about the vibes. Those games are 99% vibes. But they're still really precise. They still are extremely responsive. There's low input time, and there's no stuttering or animation lag. It's just there. Especially when it comes to games like Super Meat Boy, which isn't... So I hesitate to call a puzzle platformer because it's insane, but it is still a puzzle platformer. That game, it requires insanely tight precision and timing, despite being about a block of meat. So...
A sticky block of meat.
It's true. Obviously, that's the craziest example. It's one of the best games kind of all time. It's notorious for a reason. I'm not expecting that from a basically indie-developed game. It just makes it really frustrating to play. It's a short game. It took me 4 hours to get every achievement. There's only 2 things that are missable. There's only a handful of collectibles you don't receive as part of the story. There's 4, I think. The thing that you could count as quote-unquote collectibles, which I did like, is every time you walk by an owl, it will give you additional trivia. I don't remember the specific term they use for them in the menus, but it's basically local knowledge stuff. So, as I said in the intro, the game is a collaboration between a local tribe's basically their outreach programs and stuff, and a gaming developer, which I think is a really, 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 really fucking cool idea. So instead of it just being a game in a setting and potentially made by devs from that culture, it directly integrates information, and it kind of makes it feel like an edutainment game in a way, which I liked. It didn't feel ham-fisted or unfun. I walked in kind of expecting something like that. I had a little bit of an idea what the game was like. So, you walk by an owl, it'll give you you have 2 more pieces of whatever. You can hit the select button, basically, on whatever your controller is, and then it'll bring up the menu. It'll be 30-second little clips of maybe a historian or someone from that culture going over, and this is how a lot of record keeping was done on this type of parchment or whatever. It's stuff like that, which I think was really cool, particularly because this is a culture I have a lot of interest in. I am a white guy, but I do have the largest percentage of anything that most people would consider non-white that I do have is Native American. So I do find a lot of just indigenous cultures everywhere really, really interesting. There's a little bit of a gut feeling of interest just kind of there beyond an academic interest. And I liked seeing that on this. It's a very different culture than anything I'm used to, and stuff I haven't studied very much, or I didn't study very much in school. So it makes breaking up the really frustrating gameplay a little bit more bearable when there's 2 minutes of little informational videos and pictures of tapestries and clothing and stuff like that, which I think is really neat. I appreciate the framing of it as kind of a mix between a regular game and something vaguely edutainment-ish. The place where that falls apart is the fact that it's not a actual historical story. It's based off of a local legend, but then you play it like it's a fucking superhero game. There are literal spirits you can see walking around that you can jump on to play the puzzles, and there's a bad guy chasing you trying to get the magical item that you have. I get why both approaches are interesting, and I would be glad to play either version of that, but the 2 of them don't fit together very well, and it just creates a bit of a dissonance. General level wise, otherwise in terms of presentation, wind is a constant factor you have to be worried about in terms of gameplay. Sometimes it's actually usable. So say you have to hold one button to brace for the wind. You get down, you hold onto the ground, the gust of wind comes, and then you get back up and keep moving. You actually can use that in certain puzzles to your advantage. If you need to make, say, a really big jump, you can wait until the wind is going the right direction. You can, hold down and then run and then catch the wind, and then you fly like a fucking kite for a minute. It's actually really fun. I like that element. It just doesn't go much beyond that, which is fine, I guess.
I do that a lot in real life.
You almost could, man. If you walked out in hurricanes, you would be gone. I would get tossed around a little bit, but you would whee!
The wind blew my hat off my head the other day, and it upset me very much.
That sucks. The rest of the presentational elements include other bits of local legends. So you have like a bunch of little people, not in terms of what we would now call little people, like people, but like these little creatures. They're basically Jawas from Star Wars. I have Star Wars brain, but that's kind of what they're like. And it's something you can see in a lot of other indigenous cultures. There are a lot of legends and myths about like small people, basically gremlins, that come, they destroy stuff, they're little troublemaking. I think one of the noises they used in the game was legitimately a minion noise. They're cute. They don't do a whole lot beyond the first couple of chapters, but they just, they steal some stuff, they sneak around, make funny noises. It's cute. That's basically it. I like it. I understand why it got a lot of acclaim when it came out, particularly in a subgenre which is known for having a lot more of an inclusive background for like puzzle strategy games. They just tend to lean towards a lot of weird stuff. I just wish it was better. It's all right. For a few hours of mostly fun and a good bit of frustration, I think it's worth playing if you can get it cheap enough. I believe it launched for $20. I think that would be a bit much. I got it for free. I think it's available on Steam pretty cheap these days. I believe it...
15 on Steam.
I might be pushing it a little bit. If it's something you're interested in or you like puzzle platformers, It's just frustrating because the concepts are really cool. The effort is clearly there. It's definitely a passion project for a lot of different people, and it is a clear work of collaboration, and that's really nice. But the mishmashing of tones and gameplay kind of make it feel cheap. Not in terms of like, oh, clearly this didn't have a lot of money behind it. I've played games made by like 4 people that look like garbage, but they're still really good. It feels like there might have been too many people pulling the game in different directions, whether that might be due to legal reasons on like contracts between like how much historical stuff do we have to have versus how much gameplay. I'm sure there's lots of reasons why that could have happened. It was fun. There is a DLC released about a year after the game came out for, I believe, $4 or $5. It seems to be about another hour's worth of stuff. I am going to check it out at some point, just because there's more. And I'm kind of looking forward to a sequel. This is a setting that's wildly underexposed, and I think it would be really cool if they either hyper-polished the gameplay or they switched up a few things behind the scenes to make it a slightly different type of puzzle platformer. I think the thing, like in terms of visuals, why it feels kind of sluggish and non-responsive is because it's 3D models for the most part, from what I can tell, instead of most puzzle platformers are 2D models, or they're 2D but they've been rounded and given so much depth, like Ori and the Blind Forest. That's like it's not 2.5D really, it's just 2D stuff, but it's been beautified so much that you'd swear it's 3D. Or like Limbo is basically all 2D with just a little bit of play on the depth of field. They're all flat. This game uses 3D models for all of its characters and some of its environments, and I think that's really taxing on whatever computing power the game has built into it. There's so much to process, even though it's extremely low polygon and like low res. It just kind of doesn't pan out. It was fun. I'll give it that. I won't remember it in like a year. I'll say that. It's not terribly memorable. Maybe the sequel can be a bit more memorable, because this is the type of game that I think I would like to like that. It seems like something that could be all the way up my alley if it was a little better.